when we talk about teams, any teams in college, what do we got to start with?
Quarterback.
The quarterback, baby. And guess who Oregon's got returning and he's focused? He's having fun. Might be a dark horse for a Heisman. They haven't had this luxury since the Justin Herbert days.
True.
Walking to a spring knowing who your starting guy is at quarterback. But there's going to be some changes. There's going to be a lot of holes that need to get filled. Oregon's going to have 4 offensive linemen at their pro day from last year's team. And you come back, you have a new offensive coordinator. I believe it's Will Stein. You lose Dillingham. He's going to Arizona State. Not only do you lose that, your receiver room, you have some pieces, but it's at flux right now. Running back room is going to be extremely good, and you got in the portal and did some good things. Let's switch over to the defense. You lose Christian Gonzalez, first-round pick. And I mean, this defense now, it wasn't phenomenal last year. I believe it ranked 75th in yards and 77th in points allowed. You lose your best DN, best pass rusher, right? You lose Noel Sewell, a middle linebacker. Mm-hmm. You lose a lot of key guys, but what did you do? You got in the portal, right? You got a linebacker from Iowa, right? You got a DN from South Carolina. Any edge guy you get from the SEC, buddy, you're probably in good hands.
Yeah, it's a good decision.
You got a cornerback in Kyrie Jackson, who I'm telling you, who I coached when he played a little bit of receiver before he moved to DB. The kid's an absolute
and
freak.
people forget he got it was a hell of a play by Georgia in the national championship game. Kyrie was the Alabama DB that got beat. But if you really watch it, he's an NFL player.
I mean, he's legitimately 6'3".
Yep.
I would say long run. And the thing about coming from a receiver for the defensive back, you have what? You have ball skills. And a lot of that's hard for defensive back. There's a reason they play defensive back and not receiver because they can't catch. All right? I know, Jake, I'm not trying to hurt you or anything, but I know that's the reason why. Realistically, we all want to play receiver deep down. If you can't catch, you go play DB. But the big thing when it comes to this offense, you're averaging 500 yards a game last year, right? You're dropping 40 points a game, right? But you're losing so much. So it's so huge for these guys to have a fifth-year senior and returning and Bo Nix. I want to see. I mean, you sign a 5-star offensive lineman who's probably going to have to come in to start. You have one guy with a total of, I think, 7 starts after coming into injury last year. You're going to have to fix a lot of holes up front. And at the end of the day, if you play good defense in the Pac-12, not great, you'll have a chance to play with the championship the way the offense are running out here. So it's a new Will Stein era. Let's see how it goes. But if you're the Oregon Ducks, a lot of things looking up. You just have to fill holes. And that defense don't have to be great, right? But you have to be good. But it's good they're walking in with a fifth-year senior in Bo Nix.
Right? I didn't realize Oregon has to go to Texas Tech on September 9th.
That's not fun.
Their schedule's not easy next year.
I mean, you go to Texas Tech, you go to Washington, you go to Utah. That's tough. You do get USC at home. You get Oregon State at home, who we'll see how they are with DJU. I mean, that's not a walk in the park, man, by any stretch of the imagination. With what the Pac-12 has coming back at quarterback. So, no, that's interesting.
I mean, God, it's such a bittersweet feeling, right, to see 4 offensive linemen at Pro Day that are all going to get drafted. It's like, wow, we're doing really good. Damn it.
Yeah.
They're all gone.
Y'all
returning a senior at right guard, which is going to be big. But anytime you lose a center, especially guys who go to the NFL, you're like, man.
Yeah.
You sure you don't want to come back?
Oregon, Dan Lanning, year 2. I mean, I think Dan's going to do a hell of a job. He already is. All right, I got Auburn. All right.
Ooh.
Going back. We're going home, y'all.
How they looking?
Can't wait for this.
A lot better than what they did. Auburn struggled before Hugh Freeze got there because they weren't good enough on the offensive line. Really, the defensive line last year was decent, but the offensive line has been awful at Auburn. So what does Hugh Freeze do? He goes out and gets some guys that can do it. The first unit that ran out there was Robbie Ashford at quarterback with Jarquez Hunter in the backfield. I'm going to get to Robbie Ashford in a second. But the offensive line included Tulsa transfer Dylan Wade at left tackle, freshman Connor Liu at left guard, ECU transfer Avery Jones at center, who's a hell of a player, Jeremiah Wright at right guard, and Western Kentucky transfer Gunnar Britton at right tackle. You got the FAU transfer Rivaldo Fairweather, who's at tight end, who everybody is freaking out about. They think he's going to be a big-time player. This is going to come down to how good Auburn is up front. All right? These guys that transferred in, you are already better than what you were last year. You've already stepped up. Auburn's offensive line was pathetic last year. Awful. Those guys need to go, get out, and be gone. The recruiting before that was a joke. These guys can actually play. Then you look outside. Corey Moore's a guy that transferred from LSU that can do some things. Is he elite? I don't think so. But then Tarvaris Dawson Jr., remember that name. This kid is a freak of nature. They've had a couple injuries. But if Robbie Ashford at quarterback, and we know how important the quarterback position is. Last year, that Bama game, as an Auburn fan, gave me hope with Robbie Ashford throwing the ball. I'm a firm believer in if you can do something once, you can do it again. Especially if you do it in the biggest stage on the road in the Iron Bowl. It wasn't like you went out there and threw it good against Louisiana Tech. You went out there against an Alabama team on the road with an offensive line that's absolute garbage and was able to do your thing, including running the ball well. He's an elite runner. Not a good runner, not a great runner. An elite runner. He can score from 90 yards out. He can score from 9 yards out. He reminds me a lot of Jaden Daniels. Now, when it comes down to accuracy, and this is a point I made the other day, people keep saying, you need to be more accurate. You need to be more accurate. Well, yes. What helps with accuracy? Repetition throwing, duh, but making good decisions. When you make good decisions, you throw to people that are open. When you throw to people that are open, it's easier to get completions, and it's easier to throw than the ball. You know this better than anybody, David. It's a lot easier to throw to an open receiver than it is to somebody who's covered. So if Robbie Ashford, he doesn't have to be Joe Montana throwing the ball. With the system they're going to run, even with Philip Montgomery, the old Tulsa coach, who's now the offensive coordinator, it's still going to be a version of what Hugh Freeze typically runs, which means the quarterback run game is going to be very, very involved in what they do because it puts pressure on defenses at multiple levels. If they utilize him the way that I think Hugh Freeze and Philip Montgomery will be able to, and he improves his decision-making by a lot, which will improve his accuracy by a little, this Auburn team can really do some damage if that offensive line's pretty good. It's going to come down, in my opinion, to the receiver room. Which receivers are going to be able to step up and go get 50-50 balls, turn them into 70-30 balls. Yep. You have guys that you don't have to drive 9, 10, 11, 12 plays to go score. Why does Tennessee score so many points? They score in 5 plays. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. A lot less goes wrong when you score in less plays. It's amazing how that works out. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you've got some guys up front, Jeffrey Mba, the Frenchman, the transfer, also in the band Hansen. I think he's going to be able to do some things. I'm not worried about the defense with the transfers you have. The Tolan kid from LSU I like a lot as well. I'm looking at that offense, and I trust the offensive line. It's going to come down to Robbie, because TJ Finley can't do it. If TJ Finley's the starting quarterback at Auburn, you might as well put it in an envelope and mail that stuff to 6 and 6 Town. All right, because that's what you're getting. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And with TJ Finley, whether it's at LSU, whether it's Auburn, we know who you are, and it's not good enough. So to me, it's got to be Robbie Ashford, or you got to try and grab somebody from the portal after spring at quarterback. But if Robbie can get it right, he can be nasty.
I want to talk about the Texas Longhorns. Ooh. I think this will be the most pivotal season for Texas football in the past decade. Steve Sarkisian enters year 3. Since Mack Brown's 16-year tenure with the Longhorns, you had Charlie Strong last 3 seasons, okay, and Tom Herman lasted 4 seasons. So Steve Sarkisian enters year 3 here, and what's important here, 8-5 last season, they haven't won the Big 12 since that 2009 championship season against Alabama, okay? But Oklahoma's won it 8 times, I believe, won the Big 12. And now this team is going to be moving to the SEC in 2024. You know Texas wants to win the Big 12 before they jump ship to another conference. Steve Sarkisian returns. Quinn Ewers at quarterback. We know about that. One of the highest rated recruits we've seen in the history of high school football coming out. Transfers in from OSU, has an elite first half against Alabama last year, goes down with an injury. He's coming back, and now you add Arch Manning into that, which I'm hearing Arch Manning is taking second string reps right now in spring practice due to an ankle injury with the other quarterback, Malik Murphy. So Arch Manning is already getting some
working
big
on
time
those handoff and play actions,
some big time reps. Now we know what Texas is losing in Bijan Robinson. He's going to be the first running back taken in this year's draft, as he should be, one of the most elite playmakers in the country. But they have Jonathan Brooks returning, they have Jaden Blue returning, and they have an ESPN 300 freshman in Cedric Baxter Jr., who I think can be an elite playmaker at the running back position. But more importantly, they're returning 5 starters on the offensive line. Huge. Like that is big time. Now, 2 of those guys are out for spring practice, or at least multiple practices. But if you have game experience at the offensive line, you can get by missing a few practices in spring. A.D. Mitchell transfers in from Georgia.
That shocked me.
Big time transfer right there. Now, Texas overall is ranked 35th in the transfer portal, but you get A.D. Mitchell. And then this kid, Isaiah Nayer, is an elusive wide receiver who they think could do some Percy Harvin type things. You know, Steve Sarkisian getting the slot, working like that. On the defensive side of the ball, the defense returns a lot of experience, and they have this big time breakout potential, I think, is what could be cool for Texas, because that's what they've really been needing to set the tone on that side of the football.
For sure. Offense hadn't been a problem.
Yeah. Jalen Catalan is a safety transfer. Came in from Arkansas. Now, he's going to miss a few practices in spring as well to try and get healthy. And then cornerback Gavin Holmes is coming in from Wake Forest. So on the defensive side of the ball, but here's what's interesting, boys. Texas is going to have to go to Alabama.
Yeah.
To Alabama week 2, and then you also go to Baylor and you go to TCU.
Man, this transfer portal stuff just blows my mind. Can you imagine, like, transferring from Arkansas to Texas after you were on the team that beat the hell out of Texas at Arkansas? Like, I don't know. I couldn't transfer to.
I don't think we could ever understand it.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't think you know who Bama's returning though. Nick Saban.
Yeah.
And you think this is going to be another game with 14 penalties, buddy?
No, yeah. They'll be straight laced.
Well, like, it's
and now you got
full metal jacket.
That Texas team, like, what did they end up? Like 8-5?
8-5 last season.
8-5, and they're like a couple quarters away, a couple ball bouncing a different way, maybe a 10-3 season.
For sure. Lost by 7 to Washington in the bowl game. Barely lost at home against Alabama. But that 2009 season when they lost to Alabama in the Colt McCoy, Texas has only won 10 games once since then.
They didn't just break Colt McCoy.
Yeah, enjoy this season.
Yeah.
He's about to get off the field.
Come on over.
Like Steve Sarkisian has to use this season as a springboard.
Well, it's because, and I know that any rational person knows that Texas isn't running from the Big 12. You don't run away from a snake to go fight Godzilla. Like, that's not how that works. But if you don't win it, people will say, "Oh, well, you're running away from the Big 12 because you can't win it," even though that argument just is absolutely terrible. But you want to make a good last impression, right? You don't just want to make a good first impression. I want to leave you with that last impression. You know, lean in, nice, cute kiss.
No one wants a bad breakup.
Dangerous and all, but also safe.
We're too old for this.
And TCU's going to lose Max Duggan. All right, you beat Oklahoma last year 49-0.
Yeah, slaughtering.
Venable's still trying to figure it out up there in Norman. So, I don't know, boys. You think Texas can win the Big 12 this year?
Yeah, look, I think with Texas resources and the personnel they have, I mean, I think they're always a threat. But to me, a lot of it, and Blaine alluded to it, it's staying healthy.
I'll tell you, too, this basketball team, if this basketball team could go on a big run in the NCAA tournament, past the Sweet 16, that could build some momentum there.
Lead into it, yeah, because you don't want to be the major sport on campus that lets everybody down.
Exactly.
Embarrassment is one of the biggest motivators of all time.
If the basketball team does well here, like they have championship potential. The baseball team's looking really good. If the baseball team does well, that would at least give some confidence that, you know what, we're still Texas, man.
Yeah.
We're Texas. We can win this thing.
For sure. Hey, YouTube, real quick, we appreciate you guys. Make sure you subscribe, but answer me this question. Do you cut your sandwich in half or diagonal? Because believe it or not, it says a lot about you. Find out all about it and more on Crane & Company.